Greetings and salutations. This is Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we're going to ask an awful lot of questions. Also launched a new Substack page. Some of you guys have read it, which is cool. Please like it, and you can subscribe for free at abeabdelhadi.substack.com. As always, you can support the show by going to thebittertruth.info, and we have a Patreon page there, and you can do the Patreon page thing or just buy some fabulous swag to make your life better. And that helps support the show, and we greatly appreciate it. So all that out of the way. Hope you're all having a good Memorial Day. That's when this is being recorded. So whenever you listen to it, it's kind of irrelevant. Quick side note on Memorial Day, we are celebrating the lives of people who died ostensibly for this country. But it's my opinion that they didn't. We lied to them like we lied to us. And as we're about to get into another war with Russia through Ukraine, and it looks like we're going to ramp up in China, we should be asking ourselves why we send our kids to die for profit, because that's what they've been doing since at least 1898. I could go into the World War II of it, but Spanish American, World War I, Korea, Vietnam, both Iraqs, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, Ukraine, all built on a lie and all for the reason of profit. We send kids to die for nothing, profit. And since they volunteer, it's my opinion that we should be the adults in the room and only send them in harm's way when it's absolutely positively necessary as a last resort, not just because a bunch of soft-headed idiots who want to make a few extra bucks because they have C- brains and they don't know what the earth is and that it's dying. Don't mind killing kids that aren't theirs. That's basically how I feel about it. Madeleine Albright said it best when she said 500,000 kids dying in Iraq through sanctions was worth it. She said the price was worth it. To kill babies under 15, that's worth it. That's America. So give me all the bullshit Yankee Doodle dandy crap and say, that I'm not being patriotic. Unlike you, I am being patriotic because I'm questioning the goddamn government, and that's my constitutional right to do so. And as such, I admonish you to do the same thing. So think about what I said versus getting all pissed off and holding up a goddamn cloth that doesn't mean jack or shit to anybody else. And it doesn't mean anything to you either if I'm being completely honest. So, or if you're being completely honest, you don't really care like you say you care. It's kind of like Christians, right? They say they love Jesus and then they act like shit. Because if religion worked, we would all behave better, right? But it doesn't, because it's a big goddamn fairy tale, kind of like patriotism. So there you go, which gets us into, I'm not pissed off today. I want to talk about $25 an hour as a minimum wage. And some of you guys are with me on this, and some of you guys are going, oh my God. Well, I'm going to throw some things your way and you can think about it. And then that's what this is for, is to disagree and, comment and whatever else. So the simple part first, this is going to be a little detailed, but not too long, I promise you. The simple part first is that capitalism has not failed. It's always been a failure. Excuse me. From the get-go, this country was set up as the original tax haven. Much is said about how the founding fathers studied the governments of Rome and Greece, and, they studied Socrates and they read some of the Bible, but they were mostly deists. They weren't religious Christian people like we know them to be today, like the Jerry Falwell and the, Ted Cruz of it, who ended up voting for Donald Trump anyway, saying, yeah, he's a Christian, go fuck yourself. But anyway, this was set up as the original tax dodge. And if you look at the government of Rome, for example, that empire was run by 10% of the population, and 90% of the people were slaves or serfs, right? This country, the founding fathers set up the documents, the Bill of Rights and everything, with no real intention of us. It was set up for the top 6% of this country. That's when they say all men are created equal. They mean them. We're all created equal. If I'm Thomas Jefferson, yeah, I'm as cool as George Washington. That's fine. But if you had no money, you couldn't vote. If you're a white person without property, you couldn't vote. That didn't change until the first 50 years of this country. Native Americans, blacks, women, forget it. They couldn't vote. Women couldn't vote until 1920. So that's the evolution of this country. But it was started off as a tax dodge. And that's just what it is. The top 6% got all the spoils from land that they stole, from labor that they imported for free and made them work for free. They were called slaves, not workers. They didn't have a union. They were slaves, stolen from Africa. And there were tribes there that weren't too keen either, because they got sold out by people the same color as them. But they were in a better tribe. And that was their justification for doing it. Which is a whole other show. So let's just stick with the topic at hand. So every 4 to 7 years, on average, before the housing crash in 2008 and before the last pandemic, Every 4 to 7 years, capitalism needs a bailout. And then we're told it's this once in a lifetime thing. The depression was a once in a lifetime thing. And the housing bubble was a once in a lifetime thing. And the dot bomb was a once in a lifetime thing. And COVID, oh, who could see the pandemic? It was a once in a lifetime thing. That's bullshit. That is a crisis being managed by the oligarchs to benefit them. Quick example, Blackstone, which was just this, marginal property company up until 2008, got a big bailout from the United States government. And they turned around and they bought properties that were foreclosed on by banks. And now they are the largest holder of property in this country. They are the largest holder of rental property in this country. And that also came from Obama kicking out 6.1 million families out of their homes without helping them, even though he succeeded in furthering the TARP initiative that George Bush signed. And as president with a supermajority, didn't do anything to help Main Street. He kissed Wall Street's ass in a major way, but he did nothing for Main Street. And that's a fact. So that being said, capitalism gets a bailout. It's socialization. It's the socialization of losses, but the privatization of profit. And that's what we've been doing for 246 years now. So I'll give you an example. Like, the oil prices, the gas prices are going up. I live in Texas, and I know I'm going to sound like some big sissy compared to, like, say, California, who are paying like $7 a gallon. We're at about $4.20 a gallon. And yeah, we're freaking out because 6 months ago, it was $2.10, right? And for it to go up to $4 for no reason. There's no reason. There's no real reason. They're trying to say, the war in Ukraine, which is bullshit. That's not why gas prices have gone up. Gas prices have gone up because the prices were being gouged, because every time there's a crisis, the gas companies do that. And they jack up the prices about $1.50 or almost $2 a gallon. And then they ramp it back down about 50, 60 cents. And then we can kind of live with it for a while. And then they find another crisis and they do it again. I don't know if you've noticed, but gas has never been back down to $1.65 in California since like the 90s. When I moved here to Texas 7 years ago, gas was $1.50. Right? Think about that. If you live in, say, New York or California or, Florida or anywhere that the gas is more expensive. But in the last 5 years, we've given $3 trillion to big oil. That's a lot of money. If you don't know what $8 trillion is, $1 trillion is if you were born on the same day as Jesus and I paid you $43 million to last Christmas time, that's $8 trillion. We've given, so for 2017 or 2021 years, we've been getting 43 million a month. That's $1 trillion. We gave 3 of those to the big oil companies. And at that rate, I'm expecting gas to be $2 a gallon for life. Or we should just nationalize the oil companies because there's no reason they're a business. There's no reason they're a business. They shouldn't be a business. The taxpayer should control it. And for those of you who are like, oh my God, you're a socialist. Uh-huh. That's right. Society, social. See, the word socialism is, for society. Capitalism is for the capitalists, which means we get fucked. They take our tax dollars and they do this shit to us, right? Quick side note, 40% of counties in this country have their hospitals are privatized, right? 1.5 million hospital beds in 1975. They kept chopping it up because it wasn't profitable to have emergency room hospital beds. 1.5 million we had in 1975. Before the COVID pandemic, it was down to 900,000 emergency room hospital beds. And we did not add more hospital beds. And we didn't mandate the companies that own these hospitals to add more hospital beds, right? Because this country is completely privatized. It is completely privatized. That being said, I should pay $2 a gallon. That's just one example. Back to oil. I should just pay $2 a gallon for life because we've given $3 trillion of taxpayer money. Big Pharma, we've given a couple of $1 trillion over the last few decades, over 300 billion for Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson to manufacture that crap ass vaccine. And what happened? Didn't work that well, right? And we indemnified them so that they couldn't get sued. Yeah, I guess that's what happens when you rush out a vaccine. People die, or in my case, injured. I'll go into that in another show if I don't get taken down. But so why is Big Pharma charging $700 for a pill in the United States that they can only charge maybe $3 for in Australia? I'll tell you why. Because Australia has price caps. If you want to do business in Australia, this is what you will sell it for. Sure, you'll make your money, but this is what you will sell it for. Canada does the same thing. Most of the EU does the same thing. The Nordic countries definitely do the same thing. Japan does the same thing. We don't because Big Pharma has bought everyone in our government. If you belong to either of the major parties and you think you can change it from within, well, the Republicans don't care. Let's just be honest. The Republicans are dipshits and they don't care. They don't understand economy. They don't know what an economy is. They don't know that money is what moves the economy. They believe in hoarding it, keeping mine, that stupid individualistic shit, that Ayn Rand crap that they love to spout. They don't understand what I'm talking about because they're fucking idiots. But the Democrats who pretend to understand what I'm talking about do nothing for you about what I'm talking about. So if you kind of still harbor that little fantasy of, well, the Democrats are better people. No, they're fucking not. Okay. And I've talked about that a million times. If you think nice tweets make them better, great. I believe in legislation and action, which they don't do. They do exactly everything the Republicans do, except for gays, guns, and abortion, right? They don't take as much money from the NRA, but some of them do, right? But as far as AIPAC and the Pharma lobby and the defense lobby and everybody else, they both sides take the money. So, and both sides give us the result, the people get in the shaft. Again, so where's this all going? Well, so far, last 6-8 months, I've been seeing these industries posting record profits after trillions of dollars in giveaways in the CARES Act. And I've covered on this show what other countries have done. I'm not going to rehash it here, but other countries did not do what we did. We gave trillions of dollars to the upper 1,000 people in this country. Meanwhile, I've got like 38 million starving Americans. They say food insecurity, which is it's like if you go back to George Carlin or Lenny Bruce, it's just a euphemism to soften what's going on. We have starving people in this country, starving, not food insecure. It's not a peanut allergy. They're starving. And 11 million of those are kids, right? So these pro-life motherfuckers that don't want to have a woman's right to choose and everything like that, they don't mind if the kid starves. They don't care about that. They don't care if there's no jobs and his only options to have education or healthcare is to go into the goddamned army and go blow away some black and brown people to steal their shit, which is what we're becoming. This is the dystopia that capitalism has created. And the last 50 years, especially with the voting of the lesser evil, you're still voting for evil. I don't fucking care. If you try to tell me to vote for someone who voted for war in the fall during the midterms, I'll tell you, go fuck yourself. I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican, right? If with a straight face, you could sit there and tell me, well, you're never going to listen to evil, then you're an idiot. You are hands down a fucking idiot. You're a toddler. You're the adult child of an alcoholic who cannot admit that daddy, he beat me because he didn't get his medicine. No, daddy was a fucking drunk asshole. Okay. That's the United States. Your drunk fucking asshole uncle who visits you in the night and takes your money and then bangs you in the ass. Okay. So, wow, that was steamy. That was a steamy rant. But then I hear this shit, won't $25 an hour, because this, you hear this dipshit debate during the last year when President Demented Death Rattle took over and they were supposed to be getting us a $15 minimum wage. And then, of course, the parliamentarian, which is a hired position, because I didn't vote for a parliamentarian. I don't think you did either. But the parliamentarian said it wasn't recommended. And they said, oh, well, the parliamentarian said no, so I guess we can't. About 10 years ago, the Republicans had the same problem when they were running the Senate. They fired the parliamentarian who makes $175,000 a year, and they got somebody in there to do what they said to do. And that's what you do if you're serious about passing legislation. I never heard of the parliamentarian in my life until last year. I didn't even know it was a thing. To me, it would imply a parliamentary system, which we don't have. But I keep hearing, won't $25 or what, back then, wouldn't $15 make prices go up? Well, I don't know if you've noticed, prices have gone up, right? We got no baby formula because in the craptastic capitalist system that we have, you're down to 3 companies who monopolize baby formula manufacturing in this country. And one of them petered out because they didn't have enough on hand because fewer people are having babies. So they're like, okay, we're not going to have a bunch of crap sitting around going bad, so we're not going to make as much. Well, then you ran out and you don't have any, right? And the other 2 companies aren't near as big as I forgot the name of the one that ran out, but they did. And now we're having to import formula from other places, right? But those prices have gone up. Everywhere I go, I support local business here. I go to restaurants, I go to bars. I don't do the chain thing. Thank God. I have so many good places in Austin. I don't need to go to Chili's or, Applebee's or whatever the fuck. But everywhere I go, plates, a burger where it was $8-9, for a plate of, at a bar is now like $11, $12, $13. You want to get a plate of spaghetti somewhere before it was like, $12, $13 for a good plate of spaghetti, some kind of pasta, 18 maybe if you're getting seafood in it. Now it's like, $15, $18, $20, $3 and $4 a plate. These places are going up. Gas is already up 120%. I mean, I was in California in December. I was paying $4.50, $5 a gallon. And I was freaking out then. Now it's like, what, $7 a gallon? And here in Texas, like I said, it got to a little over $4. And we're freaking out because we traditionally have lower gas prices because we are, unlike California, allowed to trade with other states. California can only manufacture California fuel because they have their own EPA laws, which I'm not against, but you got to find a way to cap that shit because these guys aren't going broke. Big oil's not going broke. They can afford to sell gas in California for $3 a gallon and they'll still make a lot of money. In fact, more money because more people would be driving, right? Especially during the summer when they're going to travel. A lot of plans, I'm sure, are going to get, are going to get hosed because of gas prices going up. I mean, think about it. Before the COVID pandemic, 50% of Americans working Americans were making under 30 grand a year. And this is with a 5% unemployment rate, right? What happened during COVID? Lost jobs, businesses went belly up. So my point is I'm already paying these higher prices. Are the places that I'm patronizing, are they getting $25? Are those employees getting $25 an hour? When I go to the grocery store, are those guys getting $25 an hour? When I go yesterday, me and my buddy played pool at a bar here, full on pool hall. They got like 20 pool tables. We were there for hours, and their prices haven't gone up dramatically, about $1 a beer now, which is, they got to live. I get it. They're not the capitalists. They're the worker bee like you and me. And a quick side note before I get into this further. Those of you that make $200,000, $300,000, $1,000 a year, $500,000 a year, maybe you're making $1 million a year. That's awesome. You're not a capitalist. You're still a worker bee. You don't control the means of production. You don't control the oil or the airlines. You don't control power. You don't control communications. You just got fortunate and worked hard. I'm sure most millionaires I know work hard. I don't know a single billionaire except for maybe Paul McCartney that's honest. Every billionaire, if you want to dig into them, they've all stolen money, gotten incredible lines of credit from the taxpayer. That would be you and me. All right. That's not honest. Most millionaires I know, and I'm related to a few of them. They got their degree, they became a doctor, or, they sold a script, kept their career going, made a few bucks, bought a property, made a few bucks, bought another property. They're not abusing anybody. They're not underpaying people. They're just, accumulating some assets, and they're on paper, at least they're a millionaire. Some of them are liquid, but to be a billionaire, that's a whole nother level. That's Bill Gates level, stealing other people's ideas and suing them in court to make sure you get to keep it. That's what a billionaire does. That's what Jeff Bezos does. That's what Elon Musk does. You buy a company and then you sue to get your name on the masthead because you didn't invent Tesla, but you want your name on the masthead. You're not an inventor, dude. You just bought the company. But I say all that to say, these prices are going up and these people aren't getting $25 an hour. So prices are going up and the minimum wage is still $7.25. The median wage in this country is $13 an hour. Okay. Now that's if you factor in people with six-figure gigs, people in sales, realtors, they make money. And that's the median income is $13 an hour. Right. So it's over the minimum wage, but how many people at a McDonald's are making 13? They might be making 10 or 11. Right. But the price of a hamburger has gone up there, right? I don't need a McDonald's, but the price of a hamburger has gone up there. I guarantee it. If my bar has gone up, McDonald's is going up, Burger King's gone up, and those people aren't making $25 an hour. So your point of wages will go up or prices will go up if wages go up isn't wholly true. And if you say, well, it could be worse. No, it won't be. It could be worse, but those wages still won't go up. The prices will go up worse because we're going to have massive inflation as we move into a multipolar world. Now that the 12-year-olds have filled out and then starting varsity, meaning China and Russia, and we fucked up huge with Ukraine because now the ruble is through the roof. The ruble is now 70 cents on the dollar, right? That's the highest it's been in like 3 or 4 years. And it's not going back down because now Putin is in a position to demand rubles for his energy. Period. End of list. That's it. If you're in the EU and you want liquid natural gas, you got to pay in rubles. And if you don't, you're fucked. And your only other alternative is to buy it from the Saudis or to buy it from us, which is going to be way more expensive for those countries because it's far, far, far away. And shipping and everything else is what we charge those people. So they're going to be fucked. So as we move into a multipolar world and the dollar loses its hegemonic influence, we're going to see a big, big crash in the United States. It's going to be painful. And it's going to be what we deserve because most of our electorate is stupid. And some of you are going, I'm not stupid. Yeah, you are. You know why? Congress has a 20% approval rating, yet they have a 90% reelection rate. So figure that out. Okay. If you don't like what Congress is doing, look in the mirror, look at your fucking congressman. Lloyd Doggett's my guy here, and I'm going to bust my ass, make sure he doesn't get reelected. He's voted for every fucking war we're in. He's voted for banking deregulation. He's voted for banking deregulation under Trump. He voted for it under Obama. Right. So anyway, again, I'm digressing a little bit. So how do we do this? How do we do this? This is, I could rant and rant all day. Well, let's start off like the elephant in the room that nobody ever seems to want to talk about. Almost every economist that I see speak on the mainstream media, trust me, they're not talking to Richard Wolff or David Harvey or Mark Blythe. They're not talking to those guys. They're talking to Joe Schmo guy who says the same damn thing every time and has been wrong every time, right? Like Jim Cramer on CNBC. That guy's been wrong about everything. He still has a TV show. How is that possible? Or does he have a TV show? I think he got canceled, but whatever. He was saying in 2008, oh no, everything's fine. Nothing's going to happen. And then the housing crash happened. Fucking moron. Anyway, why don't we take the elephant in the room, which is defense? Okay. Right now, all told, we spend about $1.2 trillion a year on defense. And this includes not just the budget that you see advertised when the Congress approves the $780 billion budget. This also factors in for nukes, which Obama gave $100 billion a year for a decade commitment to in 2016. So still have 4 more years because he committed $1 trillion over a decade to replenishing and refurbishing our nukes, which means we're buying new nukes because I guess an expired nuclear bomb doesn't go off as well or kill as many people as a fresh nuclear bomb. I don't know the fuck, but anyway, that was President Nobel's legacy, was to commit us to $1 trillion of nukes. So you factor in the nukes, you factor in the Veterans Administration, the VA, which, that's socialized medicine, by the way. And then you factor in covert operations and black ops. Those bases are bases populated with a lot of people. They cost a lot of money. Right now, we occupy roughly 70% of the world, right? We have 900 bases in something like 80 countries. That's a lot of places. It's a ridiculous amount of places. So, I might have been off. I said 70%. We occupy half the world. We have 40 bases in Okinawa, Japan alone. Not even Japan, Okinawa. So that's the $1.2 trillion budget. Black ops, covert ops, nukes, the VA, and then the military budget. We just gave almost $60 billion to Ukraine in the last 3 months. And that's going to keep going, by the way, which gets us into cutting the defense budget. We just gave $60 billion to Ukraine. Russia's entire budget for the military for the entire year is $80 billion. I'll say that again, $80 billion, which they upped from $65 billion in 2017 when Trump was really trying to rattle the saber and act like he was tough on Russia because he was, caught up in that Russiagate shit, which was a big scam anyway, which led us to here because everyone's got such anti-Russia shit on the brain. It's not hard to get already stupid people to believe that we need to go fight Putin because he's bad man and our guys are so great. We hung Saddam Hussein for less than what our presidents and cabinets have done. We have war criminals running this country all the time. 1 week of Biden or Trump or Obama, Saddam Hussein couldn't touch that on his best day. On his best day, we hung him for getting off the dollar, and don't you forget it. But so anyway, with Russia, $80 billion. That's about what we gave Ukraine in 3 months. And it's going to keep going. Remember when Donald Rumsfeld in 2003 said that invading Iraq was only going to cost us $50 billion. We would be there for 3 months. And then the grateful Iraqis would throw rose petals at the feet of the conquering U.S. soldiers. That didn't happen, did it? In your lifetime, that's never happened. In your lifetime, the government has lied to you about every war that we're in. And yet, full throttle, breathlessly, you support, not you, all of you, but the ones who do, support another war where we got our ass kicked by farmers with muskets and rocket launchers. And now you want to fight a real army and feed the Ukrainians to the slaughter because that's what you're doing. You're putting the Ukrainian people into a meat grinder. This is Afghanistan again, which you were lied to 20 years ago. And some of you, they're only 18 or 20 years old. Afghanistan happened when you were born. And we just got out of there last summer. Don't you think it's amazing? You lived your entire life hearing about Afghanistan, and now we just got out of there. And now, which we're really not out of there, but you know what I'm saying. And now we're going to go into Ukraine. And now we're ramping up a war with China, which brings me to China. They just upped their spend about 3 years ago from 180 billion a year to 250 billion a year. 250 billion a year. We spend 1.2 trillion. China has one base outside of China. We have 900 bases outside of the United States. I'll say that again. China has one base just on the other side of Ethiopia, which is why, if you've noticed, we're suddenly having problems with Ethiopia because China has a fucking base there. And instead of trying to make deals with these people like the Chinese are doing, we keep trying to take everybody over. And that's why we're getting our asses handed to us with the dollar. Because when the 12-year-olds fill out and start varsity, what they look forward to doing is knocking you on your fucking ass for making fun of them when they were in the 7th grade. Now they're in the 10th grade and you're on the opposite side of them on the scrimmage line at practice, and they're going to run your ass over with relish. And that's what these guys are doing in a situation that we've created out of our own hubris. Because you've got assholes like Tony Blinken, who has never met a war he didn't like. And when he's an aide for Biden, when Biden was a senator, he was one of the key champions of getting into Afghanistan and getting into Iraq without any evidence that they had anything to do with 9/11, especially with Iraq, right? So cut our war budget from 1.2 trillion to, say, I don't know, $400 billion. Ramp back some of the bases. We got missiles. We don't need NATO, right? That's a whole nother conversation because NATO is a big topic. But we don't even need NATO. NATO should have been gone when the wall fell, when the Soviet Union was over. That's what I thought was going to happen. A lot of people thought that. They called it the peace dividend. And I thought, well, yeah, sure. Yeah, NATO was just there to, offset the Warsaw Pact. I get it. Well, now Russia's, now it's Russia again. It's not the Soviet Union. Okay, great. Fuck it. You don't need NATO. Oh, no. We need NATO because we got to sell weapons to somebody, right? And before Trump, the GDP spend on weapons from NATO countries was 2% of their GDP, right? 2% of their GDP. So whether it was Germany or Lithuania or Belarus, didn't matter. If you were in NATO, you had 2% of your GDP committed to American weapons. Then Trump came in, and his big thing, and this is how stupid people are. NATO's got to pay their fair share, and it's not fair to Americans that NATO benefits from all this protection. Protection. Yeah. Every country's going to jump into a war. If you jump into a war, that's the protection, right? So he upped it to 3%, and they went along with it. Well, now Biden is calling this a crisis in Ukraine, and they up their spend now. 4 to 5% of GDP is being spent on American weapons from NATO countries. 4 to 5% of GDP is about what we spend, which is around 60% of our entire budget, right? So that being said, why does that make sense to have a $1.2 trillion defense budget when the technology, this isn't World War II anymore? I got missiles right now that I can shoot from Miami, Florida, and ram it up a camel's ass in Baghdad. No problem. I don't need bases there. I don't need soldiers there, boots on the ground. By the way, we don't belong there anyway. It's none of our business anyway. Attacking sovereign nations for not doing your bidding is what fascists do. That's what Hitler did, right? We do that. We do what Hitler did, right? Everyone's all Putin and human rights. Me. Okay, you're not wrong. He had no right to invade Ukraine, although we provoked it, although we pushed his ass, and we've been pushing Russia for 30 years on this issue. And in 2014, when Obama overthrew the democratically elected Ukrainian government for a more U.S.-facing one, and Victoria Nuland is on tape picking the next president, that call got leaked. Think about that for a second. And now Americans with a straight face are saying that he had no right to do that. I don't disagree with you. But did we have a right to invade Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Yemen, right? Somalia, Sudan, until fairly recently? We're still occupying a third of Syria. And which third are we occupying, kids? We're occupying the oil-producing, wheat-producing part of Syria. Syria had a net wheat productivity. They were putting out one of the world's largest suppliers of wheat. They made a ton of money off it. That was like almost that and oil. They actually had oil. Right? We own it. We stole their oil. We stole their oil. That's human rights. That's not fascist. It is fascist. Seriously, you should be Zig Heiling Biden because he's no better than Trump, who's no better than Obama, who's no better than Bush. It's the American empire, dude. And if you think it's anything short of fascism, you're high. But so we get that down because this is supposed to be about the minimum wage, remember? And I'm almost finished, believe it or not. We get that defense budget down to say 400 billion, and you take the rest of that money and you put it in the Department of Labor. Okay. And this is a guess. I'm just going to throw this out there. Obviously, I haven't, tested this or what have you. Let's just say a company of 100 people or more are required to pay $25 an hour. So like say you're a big grocery store, you might be a local mom and pop, but you're still a big grocery store. You have 100 employees. You're paying $25 an hour. Done. That's it. And anybody that wants to bitch about that, if you can't pay wages and taxes, then you don't belong in business. Sorry. That's just the way it is. I majored in business. I've been working in business for years and years. That's my day job. Right. So I come from that. I understand it. I know exactly what it is. And if you can't pay wages and taxes just because you want another boat, well, then fuck you. You're an asshole. And if you can't play well with your toys, then fuck you. If you're that big, if you're the banks or oil or airlines, then we'll nationalize you. No loss. We're still Americans. We don't have a democracy anymore, but we still think we do. We're still American. I still like baseball. Just because Chase Bank is now nationalized and the taxpayer gets a better deal instead of giving money to Chase Bank to loan back to them at 18% on a credit card. No, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. You are now a monopoly and should be broken up or nationalized, right? That's just if you want to talk about the law and we're a nation of laws, well, then fucking start enforcing some of these antitrust laws and start breaking these guys up and start seizing some industries and making them in control of the taxpayer. But all that to say that companies under 100 lives, let's say you're a bar, you have maybe 20, 30 people working at your bar and it's a bar, and if you know anything about the restaurant business, the margins are really tight, right? And there's so much perishable. Sometimes it's a euphemism for employees stealing from you because you're an asshole. But generally speaking, it's a tight margin, right? Gas stations. That's why so many of these service stations turned into 7-Elevens because they couldn't afford to keep mechanics on and keep supplies on. It's just easier to be a convenience store and sell gas, but they only make about 15 or 20 cents on the gallon for gas. So when you see, these prices going up, trust me, the guy at the Chevron or the 7-Eleven is not making all that money. Like 99% of that goes to, the big oil companies. And then the convenience store is allowed to keep what they make in the convenience store as their profit. And that's really about it. So things like that, like a 7-Eleven where the franchise owner is incurring 100% of the cost, but gives 50% of the profit to 7-Eleven, things like that. That guy would qualify for a subsidy from the Department of Labor, which we just dumped $800 million a year into, right? Because we're not spending $1.2 trillion anymore. We're spending $400 billion. So now you've got the Department of Labor subsidizing a $25 an hour minimum wage. So let's just say my grocery store, the H-E-B, which they could afford it. But in Texas, H-E-B is almost as big as Costco, massive company. And they treat their employees pretty cool, right? They're kind of like Trader Joe's. So I respect them. But let's just say, I know they're not paying $25 an hour, not to everybody. I mean, the management probably get like 30 or 35, but not everybody there makes $25 an hour. So let's just say H-E-B was paying $25 an hour. Okay. They can afford it. They are over 100 people. But let's just say it's the 7-Eleven and they can't. Well, they can only afford to pay $11 an hour. Well, then we would kick in the difference, right? Oh, how would you do that? I don't know if you recall all those unemployment checks that went out, the few compared to how many people needed it, but quite a few got them. They were just deposited into your bank account. Done, no problem. So, mom and pop 7-Eleven or Little Woodrow's, another bar I go to, or the Grand where I was shooting pool yesterday with my buddy. They kick in for the difference. So that guy now is making $25 an hour to work there, and he gets to keep his tips too. And that bullshit where you assess the tips against his taxes. That's something Ronald Reagan started with waiters and cab drivers back in the 80s. And it's so egregious. You're gonna cut taxes on the wealthiest people in this country and then go waiters after waiters and cab drivers to make up the difference. Right? Those guys still get zero paycheck for their hours. They get paid minimum wage. They report their tips, and then whatever is left over, they get to keep. But then that goes against the wage. And now the wage goes to pay the taxes on top of the taxes. So they get like zero check or a check for $5 every 2 weeks. That's a true story. Ask any waiter that works at a place that's doing it on the up and up, trying to, not get audited. And that's how they do it. So you would pay those guys $25 an hour, right? The 11 that the place can afford to pay. And then we would kick in the 14, right? And then what would happen? What would happen? There's more money in that guy's pocket. There's more money into the economy. We decry that Americans can't save. Americans can't save because half of this country don't make enough money. 63% of Americans cannot afford a $500 emergency. That's like no room left. It's just no room left. The car breaks down, they're screwed. There's nothing on the credit card. There's nowhere to go, right? Maybe a payday loan. There's nothing there. That's what I'm saying. That's egregious, to say the least. 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, right? And so to put more money into those people's hands, well, guess what? Now they got more money to spend. Now they can maybe take a vacation. Now, oh, gee whiz, maybe they can go buy stuff that you make, capitalist guy. You make stuff that people need to buy. No one teaches the Pullman strikes anymore, man. I'll get in that here in a second, but well, I'll get into it right now. I think I'm almost done. Let me check my little notey notes here. You probably think I don't go from notes, but I do. I actually have notes. You probably think this is all in my head. And yeah, technically it is. But if I don't write it down in notes, I'll just go and get tangential, as you probably already know if you regularly listen to this show. But yeah, the Pullman strikes in the 1890s. There's a town called Pullman, Illinois, run by a guy named George Pullman. Catchy. And he had a company that made rail cars for rich people. You know, if you ever seen the TV show, The Wild Wild West, or the shitty movie in the 90s with Will Smith and Kevin Kline, you know, they kind of drove around getting pulled on a train in this big fancy rail car, right? Had its own bathroom and bar, and, you know, the walls were silk, and it was like super fancy pants, right? Had an air conditioning unit and everything. So, you know, made with ice. I mean, this is the 1800s, so let's not get too carried away. But still, they were expensive and rich people bought them. And so George Pullman made a fortune. He was like the Bill Gates of his day. Had a town called Pullman, Illinois. Everybody worked at the factory in Pullman, Illinois. And to work at the factory, you had to live in Pullman. And wait for it, you had to rent housing from George Pullman. He also had several stores, several general stores in the area. They were his. In addition to your paycheck, you got a voucher to buy at the general store. So that song, you know, I sold my soul to the company store. That's where that came from, because you worked for the company, you bought from the company store, you rented from the company. Pullman did this for years and years and years. And then in the 1890s, I think it was 1893 specifically, he decided to lower wages, but raise rents, raise prices at the company store, among other things, supplies that these people need. And they had a strike. They flipped out and had a strike, because it doesn't make sense to lower wages and then raise everyone's expenses. How are they going to keep up? You're the only game in town, right? That's why I believe in unions, because it keeps you from being the only game in town. That's a whole nother show. But all that to say, that started Eugene Debs getting involved, and that turned into 100,000 person strike in this country. We had a general strike for a couple of years in this country because of the Pullman strikes. And that was literally there was inklings of it and various fits and starts in the 1800s, but that was the beginning of the modern labor movement, right? But people forget that. And if you've got 50% of the American worker making under 30 grand a year, and this was pre-pandemic now, I haven't seen these numbers lately. Don't think it's gotten any better, do you? And these people are working 2-3 jobs, because at minimum wage, you're working 2-3 jobs. Let's face it. So when you see your kids, right? We got no healthcare in this country. Most of these people don't have healthcare at any place they're at. And some jobs, it doesn't even matter. I mean, you know, that's my day job. I handle this kind of shit. And you got employees paying $2 grand a month out of their paycheck for 6 kids in their family with a $15,000 deductible. How is that even close to a value? It's not. And you know, it's just there for physicals, and, you know, but if they get sick, they got to get $15,000 worth of sick before anybody kicks in. That can wipe out some families, man. I mean, we have 1 million bankruptcies a year since the ACA was passed, 1 million a year, because of medical issues. And of those medical issues, of those million, they all had health insurance. There's more than 1 million bankruptcies in this country. But of the 1 million medical bankruptcies that happen in this country, they had health insurance. So what's the benefit of having health insurance if you have to file BK anyway? Doesn't even make any kind of sense. But, you know, wrapping up, you know, back to all kind of what I was saying, you know, I mean, shit, we gave $15 billion to the airlines during the COVID pandemic, and we pinky swear that they wouldn't lay anybody off. They laid off 90,000 workers. Wouldn't it make more sense to give $15 billion to the 90,000 workers? Probably would have kept them whole for 6 months, a year, right? I mean, divide 90,000 into 15 billion. I haven't done it yet, but I bet you that's a good chunk of change for each of those workers. That's not what we did. We gave it to them without any legal condition that they don't lay anybody off. And that's the other thing too. We give all this money to these people with zero condition, zero protocol. And then we wonder why they raise prices and lay people off. All the money we gave big oil in the last 5 years, that should have had strings attached up the ass. That's it. Like during the pandemic, Mercedes wanted to bail out, and Angela Merkel's like, all right, well, we get 25% of your company. Oh, no. Just cover the paychecks. That's okay. Just cover the paychecks. We don't need the money. Because that's what Germany did. That's what Japan did. That's what Italy did. That's what UK. They all covered paychecks. They didn't give money to the companies because they knew the companies wouldn't distribute. They'd lay people off anyway. So they're going, no, we're going to make your paychecks. You don't fire anybody. Everybody stay home. We're paying you. Done. That's it. That's what we should have done here, but we didn't. We gave you $2,000 and told you to go fuck yourself. And if you ended up homeless or in a food line, which I hadn't seen food lines this long in my lifetime, and we ran out of food in Texas. I don't know about the rest of the country, but food banks ran out of food because you can only donate so much food, and they ran out. And we had cool stores like HEB. We're doing something about it because it's a decent bunch of guys run that company, but that's an exception. That's a big time exception. That's not the norm. And you know why it's not the norm? Because I'm telling this to you, and to you, it's like news. Because if it was the norm, you'd go, oh, no, Vons does that in California. Ralph's does that in California. No, they don't. I'm from California. They don't. So there you go. So it's an exception. Anyway, that being said, $25 amount, I can't even talk today. $25 an hour minimum wage. I don't think it's unreasonable. It's too far gone. It's too far behind. Since 1967, productivity has gone up in this country close to 900%. We've raised the minimum wage, I think, 3 times in the last 50 years. In 1988, it went to $7.10 an hour. And in 2008, George Bush let it go to $7.25 an hour. So in 34 years, we have had no increase in the minimum wage because $7.25 and $7.10 are the same thing. Time to do something, man. Time to do something. And if it's not up here, if it's not, we just, a lot of people don't want to protest. Okay, I get it. But do something. Don't just vote. Excuse me. Don't just wait to the primaries and wait for November and, try to shame your friends into voting shitty like you do. If you don't like what I'm saying and it bothers you, start emailing your rep. You have a congressional person in your district, I don't care if you think they'll do it or not. Be nasty and threaten their job. That's it. You don't have to threaten their life. They don't care if you kill them. They don't want to lose their job. All right. They don't want to lose their job. That's a 6-figure gig with a lot of bennies, a lot of perks, a lot of travel, a lot of expenses are covered. Right. They don't make 6 figures like a normal person makes 6 figures. They're 6 figures plus book deals, plus whatever they do. They want that job. And if you threaten their job, they're going to probably respond, because right now we're not threatening their job by telling me to be nice to them so they'll give me what I want. Jimmy Dore tried that with Force the Vote, and everyone, got up his ass saying, you got to be nice to AOC or she won't do anything. Well, newsflash, they're not doing anything anyway, and you're already being nice to them. And that's not politics. That's what unserious people do. Politics is a transaction. I will do for you and you will do for me. I go to the store to buy a 6-pack of beer. He gives me the beer. I give him the money. Politics is the same thing. You want to get reelected? You want to get reelected? Give me some goddamn healthcare. You want to get reelected? Get us out of these wars and quit spending our money overseas like Eisenhower warned us about, where we're turning into a failed state. We are a failed state. We're a banana republic right now. We've wiped out the middle class in this country. We've wiped it out. Wiped it out. Union participation was over 45% in this country in the 60s. It's now down to 6%. And that's mostly cops and fire and some teachers. There's no, in the feds, there's no unions in this country anymore. And the few that, states that do have collective bargaining, they got a way better quality of life than the states that don't. Cops make more money in California than they do in Texas. That's a fact. Teachers make more money. I got a ton of teacher friends in California, making 6 figures, about to retire on 6-figure incomes with a 6-figure retirement after teaching for 30 years. Texas, not even close. Not even close. Collective bargaining is the best thing going in an imperfect world. Right to work is a euphemism for right to screw you in the ass. And at not paying people $25 an hour, that's the beginning of that. On that note, folks, that was a lot. And so there you go. You can support the show. Like I said, ababdelhadi.substack.com. You can subscribe for free if you want to support the show that way. There you can, but it is a free subscription. You read my stuff. I don't put it behind a paywall. You can read essays and listen to the show there too. But then the bittertruth.info, INFO. is the main site for the show, where you can, find a Patreon page there. You can, buy some fabulous stuff to make your life better. You can get t-shirts and all of that kind of thing there. Like I said, it helps support the show. Obviously, we don't take advertising. And if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, man, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.